나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. New people, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Those of us who've been here for a while and are continuing to study. You know, I was just looking recently, we have almost 750 videos on this channel, all Buddhism. Not all Gosho. There's a lot of Gosho. There's a lot of Nichiren's writings, right? But there's a lot of personal insights that I share about different subjects, answers to questions that I've had, and we continue to do that. But there's so many writings of Nichiren and alternate translations. My goal is to read everything that I can in the scholarship of Buddhism, especially directed to Shakyamuni's original teachings of the Lotus Sutra, the method of self-realizing, self-manifesting Buddha in our daily lives right now. Because that's what Buddhism is about, living this life to its maximal potential, which also means, what is that maximal potential, Sifu? Well, it's with the least amount of obstacles, or at least whatever obstacle exists has the least effect on our attitude, our mood, our ability to overcome, our ability to succeed, all of that stuff, right? Life is a moment-to-moment experience of discovery. And does that discovery always make us shout out loud, whoopee? Well, maybe it could. But the point is, living shouldn't be hard. Living should be an amazing experience, even with its obstacles, because those obstacles are just a function. It's just like if you own a mountain bike. We're not trying to say that riding a mountain bike should be just smooth as silk. Riding a mountain bike is fun because it can do off-road stuff. It can do difficult things. What we're saying is all those difficult things shouldn't feel overwhelming or injurious or stressful. They should be exciting and fun, but let's rein in those two extremes of insane not knowing where you are and profound injuries and accidents and so on and so forth. And let's just focus in on the wonderful experience of mountain biking. It's a loose analogy, but this is what the practice of Buddhism is. This is what Siddhartha Gautama set out to find. There's all this stress and anxiety in life. Life is amazing, constantly manifesting all sorts of potential phenomena. But why shouldn't that just be amazing? Why should it also come with profound emotions and fears and attachments? And that gets in the way. That's what creates our pain, our anxieties, our stress. Let's experience all of that without all of the amazing experience that is the life process of everything in the universe, without feeling our very security is challenged. Right? Perspective, attitude, intent. Now, I'm trying something different on this video today, so please comment about this if you've noticed So, from different parts of the world, and this is a thing of the internet, of the nature of creating videos and streaming them or pre-recording them, and then the service streams them. How your ISP is performing on the particular day at the particular moment that you're listening or watching this podcast. How your internet service works, how Google is working or YouTube is working on that day at that moment. Streaming is an involved science of sending packets of information, and it's affected my recording software and hardware that I'm able to afford right now is affected, right? And so sometimes I hear from some of you that the video and the audio get out of sync, or that things get, for whatever reason, the quality isn't stellar. And I'll accept some responsibility for that because, I'm not an electronics or computer engineer. I have a lot of experience fooling with it, so I'm a meddler. And what I've done today is I've reduced the FPS of my camera, which if you've done anything like this or you know anything about it, you know that you have the settings of the camera, the setting of the computer, the setting of the software that records, and the settings of the software that edits. And there's just settings everywhere. And getting them to all play nice together, honestly, to me, because I'm not an engineer, it's a bit of an art. You have to follow hunches. Now, I'm sure if you're an engineer out there and you know this stuff, there are certain basics that you go, oh man, just do this. Well, maybe I'm still getting there, but I just made a major change on my recording device, and hopefully to make it agree with my recording software on this particular laptop, which if I was doing this to the best of my ability, I would do it with a desktop because the performance would be so much more robust that a lot of the issues I run into just wouldn't occur, right? But anyway, enough on that. This isn't a class on making videos or YouTube. It's simply to say that I've made, I think, a significant change today. And I'd love to hear from you whether you've had problems with the streaming before or not. Is the quality of the video, you notice no change? Do you notice it sounds the same as usual? Does it sound better? Does it look better? Let me know if you have an observation. I'm not asking you to just ramble on about the topic. I just want to know specifically, especially if you've noticed the difference. I want to know. But okay, so enough on that. We're going to continue with this Gosho we've gotten into, which is quite it's another, perhaps, it's a multi-video letter, so it's not a short letter, but it's a letter to a lay monk. So this isn't somebody who's been tonsured or brought into Nichiren's inner circle of teaching monks, or monks at another institution that he's instructing in Lotus Sutra practice. This is you and me out here practicing and having friends or others practicing with us, somebody with the potential, even if you haven't done it yet, to assist others in their practice, right? To create an environment for a friend, a relative, somebody who's curious, who's come up and out of nowhere and asked us about Buddhism. How do we communicate Lotus Sutra practice, Buddhism, with others? So he's identified this particular monk named Soya, and he's sending him a letter about practice and assisting others, bodhisattva practice. in the latter age of degeneration. And he set it up so far. So now we're going to read the four great bodhisattvas of the later age of degeneration. So this is about the four leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth that came from underground. In other words, us, the future bodhisattvas. And they have some specific mental types, types who are of great assistance to all of us. And they're depicted, their personages, their mental types are depicted on this mandala that we use, right? And so there's four of them. And they're great because those adjectives are used to talk about, bodhisattvas, people who are accomplished in their learning, in their study, and who bear significance in the expedient teachings of the sutras, specifically the Lotus Sutra, right? So he's going to talk about them, and as we already know, Nichiren identifies with one of them, but really it's an identification of all great bodhisattvas, learned, scholarly bodhisattvas, practitioners of Buddhism, which you and I are, and we're studying right now. And so he starts by saying, these four great bodhisattvas neither presented themselves at the seat of enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, where Shakyamuni Buddha attained Buddhahood for the first time, nor rushed to the vicinity of the Hiranayavati river, where the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, was perished, died, extinct. During the 8 years when the Buddha preached, or Shakyamuni Buddha preached the Lotus Sutra on Mount Secret Eagle, moreover, they were neither among those learned people such as Bodhisattvas Manjushri and Maitreya who assisted him in teaching the preface and the main discourse of the theoretical section, nor among such great bodhisattvas as Avalokitesvara and Wonderful Voice, who vowed to spread the sutra after the death of, or the extinction of Shakyamuni Buddha, at the assembly in the epilogue of the essential section. Upholding solely this one great secret dharma, they retired to their true abode underground, not once reappearing in the world, even after the extinction of Shakyamuni Buddha. For 2,000 years in the ages of the true Dharma and the semblance Dharma. This was, after all, because the Buddha entrusted them to propagation of this one great secret Dharma solely in the latter age of degeneration. So again, he's restating the nature of the story in the Lotus Sutra of Shakyamuni's prediction that once the capacity of the people and the time was right, these learned, great bodhisattva personifications would have to manifest. And he gave them names, he gave them types, right? And Nichiren is really just restating all of this. And the next paragraph, he begins, the variety of merits of the Lotus Sutra, chapter 17, states, quote, anyone who now the variety of merits, that has different names for that chapter, but it's chapter 17. That's consistent throughout most of the translations, except the ones that leave out a chapter, which are early, like H. Kern in the 1800s, late 1800s, had a translation that left out one of the chapters, right? But anyway, the variety of merits is the rewards of the preacher. There's different labels for it. But anyway, chapter 17 states, quote, anyone who upholds this sutra in the defiled world of the latter age of degeneration, will be able to obtain these innumerable rewards of practice, realizations, protections. Just their mindset will be so much more rewarding in the lessening of their karmic inhibitions, obstacles, that kind of thing. What I was starting this video out with, right? It is preached in the Nirvana Sutra, for instance, quote, for instance, parents with 7 children love them all equally. Nevertheless, they give more loving attention to the sick one, end quote. Taken out of context, that can be confusing to read, but I think if you just read it on its surface, in the context of what Nichiren is talking about here, it becomes quite easy to understand that in the latter age of degeneration, as I've said before, what we're really talking about is an age of human phenomenal distractions. Think for a moment, just imagine yourself alive 1,000 years ago. I know it's impossible, but with what you know about in your own lifetime, if you've lived long enough to witness the emergence of the cell phone, or the internet, or TikTok, or airplanes. Now, I'm not talking about if you're old enough. I'm saying certainly that's recent enough history that you're aware that it was a time before we had aircraft, certainly commercial aircraft, or cars. It's hard to imagine, right? A time when there were no cars, no freeways, getting around on horses or in carriages. How about time before that? No Walmarts, no Amazon, no, right? Start taking apart all of the things that we have now, all the phenomena that are being expressed now. And imagine what you would do with your day. Right? Would you whittle wood all day? If you were lucky enough to own a knife? Right? Think back. So if you understand or even attempt to understand the context of life, of human life, in previous 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, just trying to understand the situation, the context of living your life. Any of you have to be looking at today, the things you will accomplish or just touch on experiencing today. In one day, you've experienced more information, distractions, attachments, and commensurately, obstacles, decisions, worries, joys, pains. In one day, you'll experience more than you would have 2,000 years ago in a lifetime? In 50 years? Seriously, it's not hyperbole. Think about it. This is a key thing to remember when understanding why the Lotus Sutra specifically, this secret law, this secret teaching, it's not secret because we shouldn't talk about it, although there's the aspect of the time and the capacity, but it's secret in that it's not as obvious to you 2,000 years ago, to anyone 3,000 years ago, to 100 years ago. It wasn't obvious to your grandmother when she was a little girl that we would put people on the moon. Right? In fact, a lot of the elderly, they fight the idea that that ever happened. It's just too distracting, too other for them to accept. And that's the very point we're making here. That this law, this dharma, was secret because people didn't have the capacity to understand it, invoke it, be it, even acknowledge its existence. Right? Not until this latter age where we're so constantly barraged with distractions that we actually need something that so singularly simple and immediate that we can focus on it. Because how hard is it to focus on anything today? It's very difficult. Even those of us who've gone back to school later in our lives, or if you now, at whatever age you are trying to learn a new language, you can work hard at doing it and you can succeed, but for how many minutes of the day before something interrupts or I have to go do this now? That's the nature of our lives today. Constant distraction. So we need this dharma, this way of instantiating Buddha in our minds, that it has to be immediate. Because if it takes more than 5 minutes to do it, how often will we get to it? And more importantly, how often will we be motivated to try? So it has to be immediate. It has to be. So that's what the merits, the rewards is about, is that to witness it, to actually experience it without that kind of reward, merit, instantiation, knowing, we're scarcely motivated. Having trouble moving my mouth today. Apologies. So this is what he's talking about, right? And in the Lotus Sutra, chapter 23, on, quote, the previous life of the Medicine King Bodhisattva, again, the title shifts depending on the translation, but chapter 23, it says, quote, this sutra is good medicine for the ills of the people in the world, Jampudvipa, in other words, all sentient minds in the universe. Let us put aside for now, this is Nichiren now, let us put it aside for now 6 of the 7 children mentioned in the Nirvana Sutra. We're going to go back to that analogy about the 7 children all loved equally, but one of them's having a hard time, so that one child's going to get most of the attention. Let's go back to that. The 7th child, the sick child, refers to Ichantika. You remember what Ichantika are, right? There's various descriptions given of Ichantika. It generally is a reference to people of the 2 vehicles, learning and realization. But in a greater sense, it's anyone who is so occupied with ritual, words, memorization, that they don't take the time to understand what it is that they're learning, ritualizing, memorizing. They're just in love with the words and the rituals of it, and they're not really paying attention to the meaning, which Shakyamuni, constantly was getting on his students about, right? Even at one time, Ichantikas were considered to be people who didn't even have the seeds of Buddhahood. Although, tell that to a Hinayana, an early practitioner of early teachings, that everything they were doing in the proper order with all the rules and all the things, that they weren't in fact actualizing Buddhahood. Well, they weren't. They were actualizing some very involved practice, but all of those practices were designed to teach the mind's functions, how the mind works, what potential the mind has. But if all you do is study the potential, like watching football every week, and you understand all of the plays and the calls and the different moves and everything, doesn't mean you played football. I mean, it's that simple. Perpetrators of the 5 rebellious errors and slanderers of the true Dharma, and all the people of Japan in the latter age of degeneration, by definition, they're all Echantika, because they're all calling themselves Buddhists, but they've gone wildly all over the place with these, personal agendas of these teachers. And so they're not really practicing Shakyamuni's teachings. They're practicing the teachings of their historical leaders who have invented or interpreted for their own purposes the teachings of Buddhahood, but really for their own agenda of control and fame and political position, right? And because that's what they're doing with Buddhism, they are what is referred to as, obviously obstacles, but the slanderers of the true Dharma. Because they've become the maximal, the worst enemy you have in your life is your best friend. I'm not saying all best friends are your enemy, but they're the ones who have the most influence on your thinking, on your state of mind. And so they have the potential, if they're doing it for their own purposes, to become your greatest obstacle. You see? Even your teacher. And because all of Japan has fallen into either one of these schools like the Pure Land or the Zen or the Shingon, there's Nichiren, that's the context of Nichiren saying these things. He continues, during the first 500 years in the millennium of the age of the true Dharma, the men of the Shravaka all passed away, the learning school. While in the last 500 years, nearly all those bodhisattvas who had come from other worlds went back to their own lands. In other words, that potential for manifesting that potential is just not happening anymore because of all this resistance. It just doesn't poke its head out of the pond, so to speak, yeah? In the 1,000 years of the age of the semblance Dharma, Avalokitesvara was manifested as Nanhue, Medicine King Bodhisattva as Tendai or Dengyo, Manjushri as Gyoki, and Maitreya as Great Teacher Futsi to help all the people. You see, this is that personification again, not an incarnation or reincarnation. That translation should be stricken from anything in Buddhism, and here it is. Not going to go there. Now, in the latter age of degeneration, these bodhisattvas, too, have all retired to their original dwellings. Other heavenly influences and terrestrial deities who are supposed to protect this world have either left it for other places or refused to protect this negative country. Negative to what? To Buddhism, to the teachings of Shakyamuni, while remaining in this world. That's not to say there's no Buddhist, but they're not truly Buddhist. They're only Buddhist in name and in these weird esoteric practices, but they're never going to attain enlightenment because they're not doing it correctly. They don't understand what they're doing. They are also powerless in this world because they have not been fed with the taste of the true Dharma. Well, there it is. For instance, nobody except great bodhisattvas with the Dharma body can enter the 3 evil realms to save or to rescue suffering beings, because nobody except them are able to bear the great suffering there. Bearing suffering being that it doesn't influence them. It doesn't It doesn't create and influence their state of being, right? But then if you don't understand what's happening there, you see them as some kind of special deificated people, right? Like they're special, they're floating on air. No, they're just doing what you should be doing. But because they understand that and you don't, you see this great divide between yourselves. Make sense? On the other hand, Nichiren says, those great bodhisattvas emerged from the great earth in the first place have been in the Saha world for incalculable eons. That's the original enlightenment argument, right? In the second place, they have been disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha ever since he was awakened by aspiration for enlightenment in the eternal past. Again, this inculcated awareness, Buddha mind, or Buddha-ness, is the very instantiation of the universe. It's in all phenomena. We in samsara have the great privilege of being able to observe it, to witness our own experience of the very life engine that is the universe. And thirdly, they were the first to receive the seed of Buddhahood in this Saha world. More than any other great bodhisattvas, they have thus had close relationship with this Saha world from their lives, from their past. So that's all about manifestation of this potential. The bodhisattvas we're talking about from the earth, you and I, are witnesses by virtue of our instantiation, our manifestation of this apparatus, this whole world, this body, this humanness, allows us to emerge the property of mind, witnessing, consciousness, observation. And that facility, which requires this whole apparatus, that facility of mind is the thing which, the apparatus, the function with which we can observe the very process that instantiated it in the first place. And so that whole process is timeless, because it's been happening since the moment the universe began. Question. Where are we time-wise? Oh, we're good. Question. Do you have any proof to show that the bodhisattvas who have emerged from the earth are the leading teachers to save the people in the Saha world in the latter age of degeneration? So it's kind of a general question, but in the context of the four great bodhisattvas, right? Answer. It is preached, or it is taught, or it is recorded in the 15th chapter on the appearance of the bodhisattvas from underground, you and me. In the 5th facile of the Lotus Sutra, quote, then the Buddha said to the bodhisattvas more than 8 times the number of sands in the Ganges River, who had come from other worlds, no, good men, I do not want you to uphold this sutra after my extinction. This is when he's talking to all of the other personality types, the mental types, at this ceremony, where he's talking to all types of people. And they are saying, give me the privilege of promoting this into the future. Give us the responsibility of promoting this in the future. And Shakyamuni Buddha says to them, no, this isn't your fight. You can't even conceive of what the world will be like in this future where this needs to happen. I need to bequeath this teaching, this ultimate teaching, to those bodhisattvas that will come in the future. Bodhisattvas from under the earth. And in the ceremony, that gets visualized as they come out from under the ground to present themselves. Right? This is the storytelling teaching method of Buddhism and in the Lotus Sutra. So he's referencing that chapter here. And he says, Grandmaster Tendai interprets this in his Words and Phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, as the bodhisattvas from the other worlds do not have close connections with this Saha world, because they haven't been here yet, they will never have much success in propagating this sutra. Sorry, I may have misspoke there. These bodhisattvas from other worlds are the other bodhisattvas from all over the universe that are currently in the story of the Lotus Sutra with Shakyamuni. He's speaking to all phenomena and mental capacity within the universe. He's not talking about the future bodhisattvas from underground. Sorry, I misspoke. Grandmaster Miao Lo states in his annotations on the Words and Phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, even bodhisattvas from other worlds were not entrusted with the task. How can we say that it was not entrusted to Shariputra Ashtavaka alone? Grandmaster Tendai also states in his annotations on the Words and Phrases of the Lotus Sutra. Why would... I think that's a misprint there. Stopping the 80,000 great bodhisattvas that came from other worlds was for the purpose of later calling out the original disciples from underground. Again, this is a reference to original enlightenment. So what he's saying is, even though he's talking to all the current bodhisattvas of the universe in this sermon of the Lotus Sutra, they are contemporaneous with Shakyamuni being the Buddha at that time. Remember, it's not until the 15th or the 16th chapter, the following chapter, where he then says, look, I'm giving this task to these other bodhisattvas from underground because they will understand, they have always been this original enlightenment from the beginning of the universe, timelessness, and they will be instantiated in the future. Not that you guys aren't, but you guys are here and now. And the future that they will rise in will have a completely different appearance. The situation will have evolved, right? Clearly, the task of spreading this sutra was considered too heavy for other bodhisattvas to shoulder. Again, it's just another way of saying the same thing, right? The meaning of these citations, Nichiren continues, from sutras and commentaries on them is that all men of the Shravaka, such as Kashyapa and Shariputra, such bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching as Manjushri, Medicine King, Avalokitesvara, and Maitreya, disciples of Buddhas in manifestation, and great bodhisattvas who had come from other worlds were all unable to bear the responsibility of spreading the teaching of the Lotus Sutra in the latter age of degeneration. They could now, but in the latter age of degeneration to come, they were unprepared. It is preached in the Lotus Sutra, chapter 15, on the appearance of the bodhisattvas from underground, quote, there are bodhisattvas as many as the sands of 60,000 Ganges rivers originally in this Saha world. In other words, an unfathomable number of people with this potential. People only in terms of potential, not manifest. They're not going to manifest until this latter age of degeneration. Their potential has always been here, because as all potentials are, timeless. But when they manifest is a specific time with specific tendencies and conditions and characteristics. This is a repeated theme throughout all of Buddhism. And each of them is accompanied by followers also numbering 60,000 times as many as the Ganges, sands of the Ganges River. They will uphold, they will read, they will recite, and they will expound this sutra. This is also repeated many, many times throughout the Lotus Sutra. This is our practice. To read, to recite, to copy, to expound, yeah? When the Buddha had said these words, when Shakyamuni Buddha said these words, the earth of the 1 billion countries of the Saha world all trembled and split open, and out of them emerged simultaneously immeasurable thousands, 10,000s, millions of bodhisattvas. So this is a visualization of the world, of this age of degeneration, that the potential for this teaching, this secret Dharma, by you and I, who are manifestations in this time, this age, represent a potential throughout the entire universe. And you thought it was just your room you needed to keep clean. These bodhisattvas had 4 leaders, 4 great examples, right? The first was superior practice. I wonder why his name is superior practice. And second was limitless practice. Again, I wonder why his name was limitless practice. The third was pure practice. And the fourth was steadily established practice. Come on, people. That's an obvious entreaties to you and I to bear these qualities when we practice chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, yeah? It's obvious in their names. That's why these are personages. They're types of mindset. And we can adopt them all. Because the potential for that mindset has been there since the universe began. We simply need to manifest it. How do we do that? These 4 were the foremost leaders and guiding teachers of all in the group. End quote. So another way of looking at that is that these 4 principles of practice should constantly be guiding our efforts. Makes sense now, right? Grandmaster Tendai interprets this scriptural statement in his words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, these bodhisattvas are the Shakyamuni's disciples who will spread my Dharma. And Grandmaster Miao Lo comments on this in the annotations on the words of the phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, Shakyamuni Buddha is the father, and bodhisattvas who emerge from underground are his children. So the children are going to propagate their father's Dharma. Okay, it's another way to say it. While Dao Xian explains that in his supplement to the annotations on the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, speaking of entrusting the Dharma, this sutra was entrusted only to the bodhisattvas who emerged from the earth. Why was this? Because it was the Dharma attained by the Buddha in the eternal past, in other words, the original enlightenment, which is the energy from which everything is manifest. And it was entrusted to those bodhisattvas guided by the Buddha in that original enlightenment. In other words, all of the formations that began this universe have a nature of this Dharma, and there will be formations that will become humans to instantiate minds that can perceive and witness this very thing. That is Buddhahood. It's rather circular. For these great bodhisattvas to deliver benefits to the people in the latter age of degeneration is as easy as fish swimming in the water and birds flying in the sky. For those who were born in the evil world, or the consternation world, to meet these great bodhisattvas and have the seed of Buddhahood sown in them is like the spirit of water that faces the moon and pours out water, or a peahen that becomes pregnant upon hearing the sounds of thunder. As Tendai says in his profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, quote, as all rivers pour into the sea, bodhisattvas are born, drawn by karmic relations, end quote. Great sage Sakyamuni Buddha, which Shakyamuni means great sage, of the Shakya clan, Buddha, who can shine on all things, already knew this through his Buddha eye. See the witness? The Buddha, therefore, called out the 4 bodhisattvas from under the ground, instead of many other great bodhisattvas, to transmit the essential dharma of the 5 characters to be spread in the latter age of degeneration. Question. How about the scriptural statements regarding the essential dharma entrusted to the bodhisattvas who appeared from underground? Answer. Let me transmit it to you orally, because it is a secret dharma, or a very subtle but important thing that requires a great amount of context. And then he starts the next section. The Lotus Sutra and the Ages of the True and Semblance Dharma. And we're going to leave that till the next time, because we've already gone on and on and on. I hope, a lot of the things I say in these Goshos can seem repetitive. And so I consciously try, to vary the way I come to those same, just as Nichiren does. He tells these stories over and over and over again with slightly different quotations, references, the current folklore. Ultimately, Buddhism is about living this life well, and living this life well in Buddhism is learning to live this life as it actually is happening, without the constant baggage we carry every day, which is false. It's a function of our fears and our hanging on to and collecting. And if we can let go of that baggage, we can see everything anew as it happens, because that's how the universe actually works. And when you view and experience your life that way, nothing is a tremendous obstacle, right? Because it doesn't come with all that associated crap, which we impose on ourselves. That's why it's called enlightenment, awakening. You leave that drudgery behind, because it's gone. The past is no more. The past only remains in your mind, in your perceptions. If you carry that along, you're taking away from your experience now, which then robs the next moments, the future. You've heard these kind of parables about that throughout, Asian thinking, even ancient Greeks and Western thinking in different ways. Yeah. So that's all. Buddhism is very simple. All right. I'm so proud of your practice. Please take care of your health, right? Be kind to yourself. And I will see you in the next one. All right? Don't forget to use all the resources available here for free, right? Keep your practice strong. Take care of yourself. And I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to comment, too, what you thought of the quality of this video. I don't mean the quality of me. I mean the video itself, the way it plays, the sound, the track, all of that. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.